no lemon there. And this is to illustrate that wherever a thought goes, a chemical flows. And whether the danger is real or perceived, your body doesn't make that distinction. It just reacts. And the chemistry is released into your bloodstream, and you are having a response to, in many cases, a fear thought or a fear sound or experience that produces adrenaline. And the adrenaline sits on, the adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys right behind your psoas muscle. And so psoas are the first responders to a fear response.
Yes.
Because they lift your leg for fight or flight. And yet, in our culture, we are taught to tell our body, not now, not now. This is your boss. You're not going to be kicking your boss. Great analogy is you're driving in your car and somebody pulls out in front of you suddenly. And you get the same amount of adrenaline that cave woman used to get to fight a tiger. But the only movement you can allow yourself is just the movement of your foot from the accelerator to the brake. That's all you get. And the rest, you tell your body, not now, because you know you would put yourself and others in danger if you did have that wild response to adrenaline. However, that reaction is still there, and now your fascia has tightened around your psoas and trapped that chemistry there. So you have this encapsulated cocktail of chemistry marinating between the fascial layer and the muscle of your fascia, and or the muscle of your psoas. And if that isn't cleared out, if blood can't get in between those layers and sweep it away, the adrenaline, lactic acid, uric acid gets gummy and sticky, and it can cause the fascia to adhere to the surface of your psoas muscle. And this is what doctors will call adhesions, that sticky feeling. But the beauty of knowing that means that you cannot make yourself wrong about having controlled that fear response, or you can make yourself not wrong about not having done this at the time. But you can go someplace alone and safe and have what I like to call a SNIT fitness program.
I like that.
You just lay on your bed, and even if you don't even feel it, you can start pounding your fists on the bed, or you can start bouncing your ankles on the bed, and you can start shaking. And I love certain phrases. Certain phrases work for me. It's not fair can usually get me going. So if I'm on my bed and I'm going, it's not fair, pretty soon I really am feeling it, and I can give my body that temper tantrum that it didn't get to have back then. And I'm liberating the tight held fascial clench so that blood can get between those layers and sweep away those encapsulated cocktails of chemistry. And that's all well and good, but in classes where I'm doing self-myofascial release, people are embarrassed that they start to cry. Usually in their first class, they'll start to cry and they'll try to hide it. But I just make a general announcement. That's your body leaking. There needs to be no analysis, no judgment. Most of the other people in the class have been here for their first time too, and they are holding space for you to empty your storage tank. And there is nothing taken personally or judged. Just let it rip, let yourself have it. And then afterwards, it's like a 2-year-old after a temper tantrum. You might even take a nap.
Oh, yes, I know. Wow.
And people are holding that stuff for 25 years, and it can blow through in 15 minutes.
Absolutely. It's not that complicated. And what you say about not judging, because I think this is the biggest disease we have, is the judgment of ourselves, judging that I have done something or have not done something, or that I'm wrong, that others are wrong, because then it translates, if I judge myself, I automatically judge others. But if you can go into that place that you don't judge and you just allow that to come out, it's not just for you, it's healing for everybody, one person at a time, right?
In a room full of people emptying their storage tank, the energetic is quantum. It's
Yeah.
multiplied. And one person starts to emote and feel or move, and then it goes through the room like a ripple effect, giving permission to other people to be human. Because trying not to feel isn't the goal. Becoming numb is not the goal.
Right.
Because our feelings are our guidance system on this planet to move toward things that feel good and away from things that don't feel good.
This is powerful. Wow. I mean, we're entering already into like really absolutely crucial stuff for us, you know? And what I wanted to do is introduce you for whoever will be listening or is listening. And then we can go back into those topics, because I think this is like right on. Everybody should be talking about that. Like what is really going on with our system, you know? And how can we not be the victim of it, but actually use it for healing, not just for today, but use it for healing the stuff that's been there for like 30 years or 40 years. So
Yeah.
that okay? I'm gonna just introduce you a little bit so everybody knows who you are, because like you are an amazing person, and I'm just so honored and grateful to have you on this call, Ronelle. So let me just say, so today, welcome everybody who's listening or will be listening to the recording. And I know that there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're just here for you to share some really tremendous value, because our guest is going to bring information and understanding and depth of perception that is not an everyday thing. It's my belief. And so let me say, this is Monica from Empower Your Health, Empower Your Life TV. And what we do is introduce you to outstanding leaders, speakers, healers, society, social change makers, and people who bring tremendous value to the world, and to healing communities and to healing individuals. And today, like I said, we have a really amazing guest who's going to give you a totally, I would say, a very deep perspective on what's going on, what may be going on with your emotions and your body today. And so let me introduce you to Ronelle Wood. And Ronelle is gifted in her chosen field of myofascial release. And she's a woman of exceptional talent as a writer, teacher, mentor, public speaker, and therapist. She speaks to the heart of hundreds of clients, students, readers, and listeners to heal and rid themselves of pain, as well as develop their own abilities to facilitate healing. She's a source of simple yet life-changing touch, wisdom, and words of inspiration that come from her own experience of healing physical, emotional, and spiritual pain. She sees that miracles can be achieved every day and is dedicated to sharing with the world the truth she has learned. So once a speech pathologist, Ronelle is now a respected authority on fascia and healing. It was her own trauma and injury that led her to seek authentic healing. And what she didn't find in talk therapy, in prescription drugs, in surgery, she found through myofascial release and true physical alignment during movement. Using what she learned, she created a hybrid approach and called it True Body TM. And since 2008, there's been people traveling from all over the world to her headquarters that she calls Sanctuary in Ojai, California, to receive this unique combination of healing and instruction. Ronelle is also a successful author, and her first book, Touching Light, How to Heal Your Fiber Optic Fascia, unveils a scientific breakthrough that shows living fascia magnified 25 times and reveals its fiber optic nature. This has led to an entirely new approach to physical, emotional, and spiritual health, and that revelation provided by the magnified view of fascial system allows a paradigm shift that is equivalent to the discovery that the world is round instead of flat. And this is huge. My personal feeling is that this discovery has not been publicized enough. It has not been understood, but it is a true paradigm shift in healing. And my belief, and I hope Ronelle's as well, is that this will be growing and expanding, and that we actually, more people will have access to this understanding of who we really are and how we heal. So welcome, Ronelle, and I am just very grateful. And thank you so much for already sharing. You've shared so much with us already, and I cannot wait for more. You know, it's wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. There's nothing I love more than talking endlessly about fascia.
Yes. Wow. And yes, and I cannot wait. I just really appreciate your willingness to. What you do is bringing this sometimes dense scientific language and things that are just like I don't connect with it. Like, what is this fiber optic fascia? Fascial system. Like, what is this? But you bring it to people in a way that's digestible, understandable, and applicable. So this is absolutely fascinating. Well, welcome. So we've already been talking about what happens when that physiology gets stuck in the body and we don't release it, and how we can start releasing that, fascial restrictions and the emotions that get accumulated in the body. So I'd love to continue on that. Can you just tell us briefly about what is happening for you right now? And
you mean personally?
Not personally, but what's on your mind apart from what we already started sharing?
Well,
or personally too, if you want.
I remember somebody saying something super radical to me once, and it was designed to, we were in a whole workshop, and it was designed to rile us up. And what they said was, life has no meaning. And we really got up in arms about that, and we spent probably an hour and a half explaining that they were wrong, and yes, it does, and justifying all the reasons why. And then after we had our kerfuffle, they introduced the concept that life has no meaning except that which we assign to it.
Wow.
So it's interesting when you're growing up in a particular culture and hugging is not something that's done. You grow up in another culture and hugging is, highly valued and done quite a lot. And then when those two people come together from their different cultures, they both think they're right because of the meaning that was assigned to those activities when they were growing up. And in and of itself, hugging is just hugging. And we could put a lot of meaning into it. So I'm just kind of tripping over myself and falling forward into what I'm saying, realizing now that that particular analogy of hugging makes me tight right here. And I'll relate a personal experience. My daughter is a nurse. She's going to be 30 this year. And so she's in it right now. And over the weekend, my disk became corrupted in my computer. So she and her wonderful fella drove here, and they were masked and gloved, and we maintained the 6 feet apart rule, and she allowed me to borrow her computer, and it was wonderful to see her eyes, and horrible that I couldn't hold her and hug her. And maybe if I hadn't had that experience of hugging her all her life, it wouldn't have been something that I missed, and I wouldn't have assigned that much meaning to it, and I wouldn't have felt so sick to my stomach when she left. But I bring forward all of that meaning to the experience of hugging. And I also acknowledged that it's the meaning that I assign. So not to get too esoteric and too far out there, because we want to stay in the practical and make this understandable for the layperson, that right now we are inundated with a lot of projection about what people think is going to happen, and a lot of interpretation about what it all means right now, as well as judgment of how other people are handling it.
Yes.
And it is affecting our fascial fishnet inside. And I am going to go grab something as a physical illustration. It's just right over there.
Please.
Hold on a second.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Y'all have worked with, possibly, the yoga tune-up fitness balls. So this is our fascial fishnet, and this is our fascial fishnet on coronavirus. Okay. My fingers were in the way. I'll do it again. You hear a loud noise. Hear something on Facebook. And pretty soon you are so sphincter puckered, it's not funny. And the fascial system is now impeding circulation and flow of blood, lymph, and light throughout your body. And it's terribly detrimental to your health. And so many diseases can be understood from the perspective of being squeezed to death from the inside. Many of us take our body to a doctor and lay it on the slab and say, who did this to me? And that perspective of, oh, it just happened out of nowhere. You've got high blood pressure. Most people get it at your age. It's age appropriate. So let's give you a prescription to change the way your body's functioning so that you get vasodilation and the blood moves more easily.
All right.
With what we know about fascia, if you truly are first doing no harm, as the Hippocratic Oath says, why not find out what happens if you take some of the pressure out of the system first before slamming into it with prescriptions or scalpels? And the work that we do is to allow a person to feel their feelings and let go. That's the function of myofascial release. And sometimes I hear myself talking as though myofascial release therapists are the only ones who are capable of providing this help. And I would love for the whole world to be empowered to know just this fact about your body, and then that you have a lot more to say about what's going on inside you than Western medicine might have led you to believe. So that analogy I gave earlier of SNP fitness program, it isn't because you're immature or unevolved. In fact, you are ahead of the game if you know that your pissiness and your crankiness and your argumentativeness is all yours. And that if you had a cleansing of your own doing and went into your room and laid on your bed and just let the energy out of your body like a pressure release valve popping off, that you could come back to your loved ones and you would be so much less triggered by little things. And I feel as a myofascial release therapist, our job is to start trotting around and finding where you get triggered.
Yes.
Your fascia.
Well, we start with ourselves. And you know what I want to acknowledge is that, when you talked about your daughter and what happened when she came over, you because you're trained and you trained yourself, you are aware what happens. It tightened up, your throat is tightening, right? So you actually are able to pinpoint it and be aware. You are tracking your body. And that's a huge skill. It doesn't just come in without practice. So can you tell us more about how this all started for you?
I need water for that.
Yes. It's a long story. I'm hearing something coming.
Once upon a time in the land of fascia. I would have to say, when I wrote my book, I thought, there, I've said it. Now I never have to talk about it again.
Oh, you were wrong.
But it just invites more talking about it. And quite honestly, when I wrote my book and gave it to my editor, the first draft, she took some editorial scissors. And she said, no, I don't think I would tell that part right now. So there's a whole file of traumatic events that happened to me that she didn't feel the world quite was ready yet, and would be traumatized by hearing my stories. So I preface that because I can tell, I feel a need to let people know, if you read the book and think, that wasn't that bad, I don't know what her fascia was all uptight about. There's a lot more to it than that. So I'm not going to tell any of those stories right now, but I am going to talk about the ones that are most teachy, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I was born into a very fundamentalist Christian home. That was my first experience of being taught that I was born a sinner, and I needed to overcome my infatuation with things that sparkle, because jewelry and the like was vanity. And I also needed to overcome any desire that I felt to move my body to music, because that would just arouse the baser passions. And so from a very young age, there were a lot of messages from the fundamentalist religion that taught me, please sit down, please be quiet, please hold still, we don't say that. And I was good at it. I learned how to navigate the whole church experience to appear as though I didn't have desires for dance and jewelry and kissing boys and things like that. And from that upbringing, apparently, I had a lot of fascial clench around my throat, around my arms and hands, around my abdomen and my hips. And the meaning that was assigned to movement was that it was in some way naughty. And when I had children of my own, I began to feel jealous of them. And it was really odd, because I would, just love them and kiss them and hold them. And I had no intention of raising them in that same religion, but it was really weird to me to feel jealous of them. And that's when I went in search of help, and I got a ton of talk therapy. And no amount of talk therapy ever provided me any tools or clues with how to feel better. I just had this underlying sadness all the time. And then, long story short, I went to the closest, shortest, least expensive John Barnes myofascial release workshop, just to shut up a friend who kept saying, I think you'd really like what you teach. And in that, I had an unwinding experience where I was lying on the table and the teacher came by and she put her finger on my chin and she said, "Let that sound out." And the sound was,
right.
And she said, "No, really, let that sound out." And she gave me a pillow. I had no idea. I was angry, and I wanted to show her. Oh, you want me to let sound out? Okay, I'll let sound out.
I'll show you the sound. Yes.
Yep. And in the middle of that, I'm thinking, well, there go all potential referrals from any of these colleagues here. I'm that girl, and I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm crazy, just like they said I would be. I'm just like my mother. And afterwards, they whispered, "Oh, we need to get back to class, but put a blanket on her. This shaking you're doing, Ronelle, is really great. And when you feel ready, come back to class." And so I tried as hard as I could to get it together again. And I know you all know what I mean when I say that. The suck it up.
Yeah.
And I tiptoed off to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror, and there were these little red petechia around my eyes. And I hadn't seen that since I had given birth to my son 10 years before, 3,000 miles from home. Having lost my insurance card, I lost my whole wallet that day. And they didn't call the anesthesiologist because they didn't know really who I was. I was just some woman off the street. And my husband, a doctor who had just arrived from across the country, was in the recliner while I was in labor, and he was going because he'd been on call for a long time. And I had to just suck it up and deal with it because he went back 3,000 miles to his job. I stayed alone with my 20-month-old and my newborn, and I didn't have time or space to cry or feel or emote in front of them and frighten them. And I didn't realize I had this all packed in for 10 years. And that was the beginning of my experience and journey into myofascial release, where my career was going this way, and then it went this way. I took a whole different path because it's what works. And apparently I was born to do this, because I find that as I enjoy this trade of mine, the feedback is that I have great talent at it. And I was raised to not ever say something like that, but I learned now that it's so fine to feel whatever you feel, and to, may I underline and circle this, love yourself.
Love yourself.
That's where it all starts.
Love yourself, don't judge yourself. And myofascial release helps us to go into that self-love, because we get rid of the underlying patterns. And it brings me, though, it's not just the fascial release, there is also a component of the belief system.
Yes. Yes. Your mind can put up drywall in your head. We don't go there. We don't think that. We don't believe that.
Yes.
And it becomes physical.
Wow, exactly. And I, so there's so many, I know you are working on many different levels, because you're an author and a speaker, and you're also a therapist. So you were working with people directly, and you also are bringing that to the public to educate. So tell us more, and how do you help people to find that journey of healing?
Well, you just said that is kind of a two-part answer. When someone comes in for a one-to-one session, you never know what's going to happen. But if you've had a lot of myofascial release yourself, and you know what's possible, there you stand for them as a possibility. That all of us carry around stuff that in some ways we find is, I wouldn't say sacred, maybe precious, like, oh, if anybody knew this one thing about me, they would know that I was awful, or this one thing happened to me and I'm never ever going to get over it. And I know those are inside a body, and just knowing that, I begin to speak and let them know that physically it's okay for them to let go, that there's no judgment, nothing would be taken personally, that they may get an urge to move or twist. And then, as you know, rebounding. It's like shaking up a snow globe.
Love it.
Muscles
Yes.
being shaken can't hold. And so all of this that you've been holding on to, if they, in the first session or the next, take me at my word, and they get that it's okay for them to not just lay there and hope I know what I'm doing, but to participate and let themselves feel during the session, I am able to match the noises that they make, because oftentimes it's embarrassing for them to make noises. And what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll imitate the noise that they're making and resonate with it and go with it with them. It's like drowning them out, giving them permission. Nobody outside the room is going to be listening. Give it to me. Let's have it. Whatever you got, let's go. Okay.
Let that sound out.
Yeah, let that out.
Let it out.
Yeah. And egging them on, you know, if I know a little bit of their story. The most profound experience I had with someone was he had been, his parents had gotten in trouble for doing terrible things to the kids. And it was, 20 years ago or more. But one of the things that I said is, I'm not them, because there was this guilt that this person carried to be associated with them, and the shame of it. And it was horrible for them. But for him to tap into, I'm not them. I have my own precious child, and I would never treat her that way. I'm not them. And that just broke open the whole session, and this terrible thing that had been in there for 20 years was able to burst the dam and come out. And from there, I often will say, can you imagine what you looked like when you were a kid? And can you see your haircut? Can you see the outfit you were wearing? As you look at that kid, how do you feel about that child? And do you know how that child felt about that haircut and that outfit? And since we're just in make pretend, the kid can be in your mind and you're still you, but you're all grown up now and you know a bunch of things. Is there anything that you would love for that kid to know? And would you like to walk into the picture with that child? And as you do they recognize you? Do they know who you are? And is there any impulse there? And it's different with every person. It's not the same. Some people don't want to go hug that child and hold it up and pick it up. And in this process, and there's a lot more to it, we eventually will explore, would you like to take that kid with you? Like, you want to ask, you want to get out of here? I have a great car. You'll love my house. And then in your mind, just bring that kid with you. And it helps to integrate these two parts of ourselves that get conflated, where we're triggered so easily because we are that 6-year-old. But instead, we can really stand into and own the grown-up that we are and be the parent we always wish we had, and go, and say, "You're coming with me, baby. I got this now. What do you want to do? You want to do something fun? What would be fun?
Yeah.
You want to go run on the beach? You know?"
Yes, and we reclaim it because that's our inner child and it gives us joy. And you know how I think often when people go through therapy, you see that sparkle in their eye and they start to actually enjoy their life. You know, it's not just kind of doom and gloom anymore because you have that child back with you and they can play around. It's not just, you know, stuffing them down. So that's a
Yeah.
huge element. Mm-hmm.
And realizing you've been looking out here for the
Yes.
solution to fill in
Mm-hmm.
the hole from the foundation. Who's going to help me? Who's going to fix me? That boyfriend didn't do it. That husband didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
My sister totally let me down.
Mm-hmm.
When what you're seeking has always been in here, because you know that child better than anybody. You know how you wish that somebody would talk to that child, and you can be the one that says, "Come here, baby." Now, this is a tangent, and this is me explaining how I do what I do, and it's not a how-to or a right or wrong about me as a therapist and how other people should be, but in response to how do I help people allow for emotional release. That's one.
Yeah, and I mean this is important though because one thing that you said is that you know I feel like you were saying that you know we become our own therapist or the patient becomes their own therapist, but they need that skillful guidance. And I think through all your experiences and that you know you became the master of actually guiding them and helping, like taking them by the hand with those skillful words, and that my feeling is because of your experiences, your commitment to your healing.
Yes.
And
like our mentor has said, hey, you want to get really good at myofascial release?
Right.
Hurt yourself really bad.
Yes.
And he wouldn't wish that on us, I know. Of course. But it just seems to be those who have been there and healed from it.
Yes.
Really know what the client on the table is experiencing.
Yes. And it's kind of like you feel that resonance, you feel where they at because you've experienced that yourself in some way that's similar, not the same, but you know that feel and you know that place of just dissociation and struggle, you know exactly where it is. And so I think what you've already talked about it a bit today, but what you're bringing up too is that intrinsic connection between the physical aspect of fascia and the emotion. And it's in our culture, right? It's all separate.
Yeah, but it's braided. Mind, body, spirit. There are therapists who say, oh, I don't deal with the emotional release aspect.
Okay.
I'm not crazy about making people wrong, but I do like to present ideas that there might be some place to move forward from there. And there's another aspect of being a therapist that has to be wrangled, and that is your ego. Because I've been doing this, you know, body work since '93, and I remember the early days of thinking after I would come out of a session and I'd be eagerly waiting for somebody to say, that was fantastic. And then I would tell myself, yeah, I know, I'm really good at those. And then they would come out of a session and they either wouldn't say anything or they would say, it really wasn't what I was expecting. And I would tell myself, you're right, I know, I shouldn't even, I don't have no business doing this. And my ego would fly from one end of the spectrum to the other because it was very invested in being, ta-da, I can tell you that your quadratus lumborum is tighter on the right, and I'm going to fix it.
Fix it. Right?
You know, after a while, you get that you can't expect the cookie every time after a session. And I'll just underline some of the quotes from John Barnes. If you know what you're going to do going into the session, you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Wow.
And to be unattached to the outcome and let it be whatever it is. because you can't possibly know all that's going on under the surface unless you've had a lot of MFR, and you realize you may lay there like a cadaver, but a ton of stuff is happening underneath the surface.
Yes.
And you can just know that and let clients have whatever experience they are going to have as they lead the session.
Yes, and they need, I think a part of it too is they need to be held in this non-judgmental space where they allow to be a cadaver if that's what's actually healing to them, you know?
It feels so fun to make them, to not make them wrong, if that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. I think that's huge. And I mean, just you, this just tells us so much about you and know who you are, because you went deep into all those aspects, understanding the science and understanding how to work with people, but also working on your own mastery of being able to be that sounding board and just holding that space without the ego. And that's huge. It's a true I mean, it's mastery, you know. I want to honor that about you. And it's just beautiful that you know, the reminders of how, what we are really striving for. And you know, so we talked a bit about that too, but can you tell us more about how emotion and the fascial system are connected, or not just connected, but how are they actually the same thing, but yet, you know, not?
Yes. I adore science. I appreciate the scientists. And we have a lot of myofascial release books that are thick with scientific language. And we are very impressed with one another at our ability to speak science to each other. But then we're the only ones who really know what we're saying.
Yes.
And the client's coming in, and the client just wants to feel better, and often doesn't even realize that they're sitting on a powder keg of emotional experience, and they're assigning meaning to whether it's good or bad to have feelings. And sometimes they view feelings as weakness. Being vulnerable means then somebody can get you. And the truth of the matter is, the more you don't feel your feelings, the harder your tissues get. And so you're much more thick and resistant, and you're actually weaker because something comes at you and you're likely to crack rather than flow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really great analogy just to start with telling people about feelings. My mentor, Gay Hendricks, he was the one who encouraged me to write my book, and he wrote the foreword for it. He gave me a word the other day. You're going to love this. I hope everybody starts using it. It's an old, I think, Greek term called alexithymia. And it means being unable to feel your feelings. Mm-hmm. And that is what most of us are walking around doing, thinking the goal is to not feel. And to a certain extent, and to a certain point in your life, that's true. But then you're so thick and hard, it's now time to empty that tank. And if you can view feelings from chemicals, we could say that the acidic chemistry, lactic acid, uric acid, and adrenaline, would be anger, fear, resentment, rage, terror, horror, those things. And we could say that dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin are joy and connectedness and love and a feeling of oneness. And you have your own pharmacy for that. Your brain releases those chemicals of oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphin, and floods your body with the feeling that we call love. Mm-hmm. Those other chemicals, when they flood your body, we would call them fear. Mm-hmm. So quite literally, in the body, when we work with your fascia, we are asking your fascial fishnet to stop clenching around moments from the past of fear. And then those encapsulated cocktails of chemistry around which we clenched when we were afraid are liberated, and the blood gets in there, and it helps that chemistry of lactic acid, uric acid, and adrenaline flow out. Great, good, it's gone, triggers a release of endorphin and dopamine and oxytocin in your brain. But there's a step in between.
Yes.
And that is this. Now you've got the chemistry of fear back in your bloodstream as it's making its way out, and you're going to pee it out. But it can trigger a memory. It can be the chemistry that wakes up the moment when you clenched around something.
Yes.
And you can have flashes of images or memories of events or sounds that you recall that can be terrifying. And on the table, people get afraid that something bad is happening and that they shouldn't be feeling that way. And sometimes they don't even say anything. They're just laying there quiet with their eyes closed thinking, why do I want to strangle the therapist? She didn't do anything wrong. And so I talk that stuff. So they know that that could possibly happen, and let them tell their body, nothing bad's going to happen if you let go. Nothing bad's going to happen if you let go. And it's a weird new thought. And as they start to, like I did, I could only let go this much, just beep, 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 until I went, whoa, I let it all through my throat. And let yourself feel that. Don't try and stuff it back down again. This tank is too full. Feel whatever you feel. And as a therapist, we're like at their this old suitcase. We're like, oh yeah, anything else? Oh, what? Look at that coming out of there.
Yes.
And it isn't verbal. It's just mostly staying with it and allowing for it and joining them in the of it.
Yes.
And let me say also that my daughter in particular, when I worked with her psoas the first time, she was maybe 12 years old, uproarious laughter, out of control, uproarious laughter. So it's not always bad things that you're suppressing. I think she'd been inwardly laughing at me her whole life. And to have permission to let go of, you know, the absurdity and the laughter, it's just glorious, because your psoas is going like this, like crazy when you laugh. It does this when you cry, when you cough, sneeze. Your psoas is very involved.
Wow.
I think I want to get a picture of the psoas. It's right over there too.
Yes, please go ahead. This is great. It's fantastic.
I love having these illustrations to refer to, because a lot of times people think the psoas is down around here somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's really good to know that it is attached to the discs and the vertebrae. That's important for back pain. That starts just below your ribs. It attaches to about 5 of those discs, and then it comes forward over the front of your pelvis. So it goes from your back forward, and it attaches right here at your inner groin. And the purpose of it is to lift your leg for fight or flight. But this can get so tight and so held and hard and short that it's affecting back pain. And people come in saying, it's just back pain, it's not emotion. Well, and being able to get this to elongate is important. Now, fitness people will say, here, let's do a psoas release. And they push you into some big old stretch. They do not realize the Pandora's box that they are dealing with, because that can go into a spasm. And this deserves respect. And this brings me to the point that when it comes to fascia, there is no substitute for time.
Yes.
You can't rush it. You can't force it. It won't let go if you attack it. It's used to that. It just resists.
Yes.
Hanging out with it and giving it enough time to let go is such an unusual experience for those of us who are used to pushing ourselves and okay, isn't it letting go yet? Hurry up and let go. And finding what it feels like to have permission and time to soften. And then once you've softened, see if there's another layer of softening beneath that, because there's the holding that went in last week
Yes.
when you stepped off the curb funny. And then there's the holding that went in 10 years ago when you broke up with that person. And then there's the holding from when you were a kid and you flew over the handlebars of your bike. And we are like an archaeological dig. We're looking deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's fun for me when somebody gets one session right after another close together, because it's not as hard work. It's like the crust, the permafrost layer that we're dealing with at first requires jackhammers and shovels. And, you know, we're having to just wait and wait and wait. And I don't mean to imply that we work hard on the body. We don't. We just
wait.
Working through thickness. But then as you get through that layer and down into the deeper and deeper layers, it's like moving to just paint brushes or toothbrushes and hair dryers to excavate what's underneath there. And a person can begin to get to the bottom of it, you know, get to where they have freedom restored in their body again. And the whole system, if you get one fascial fiber to let go, it communicates with the entire web.
Yes.
And there's this glorious feeling, I know you know this feeling, when you are in fascial release mode, where it's like somebody has loosened your cocoon, and you start to say, oh, yes, yes.
Oh, I'm free again. I am human again, right? I bring my essence back. Yes.
Yes.
Wow. I love what you say about respect the body, because we are so used to, I mean, not we, but in culture, in our culture, I think there's so much of that, like just no pain, no gain, just, you know, get in there and just like, you know, that doesn't, it's not healing. It's not authentic healing.
We view our brain as the master and the body as the slave. And we punish it and we say, this is what you get for eating that Haagen-Dazs green tea ice cream flavor. And I would love to find partnership between body and mind. So you guys get back together again, your body and your mind. And your mind doesn't just view your body as some meat bag it's dragging around that one day suddenly betrays you and disobeys, because you've said jump and it's said how high for so long, until one day the fascist says, I can't do it, I ain't got it anymore.
And you collapse.
think it was that day that it happened, and it's been brewing for years.
Wow. So where do you see the biggest challenge for us? As therapists, as people in this society where there's so much conflicting stuff, information, and you know, this deep knowledge, it doesn't really get out there enough. Where do you see the challenge?
My mind first goes to outward things, and then I remember, oh, you know, bring it close to home, Ronelle, and then what do you really have control over? And I have no control over anything outside myself. I can control, you know, what goes on here and my reactions to things. And sometimes just in saying that, it can sound wrong-making. Like, well, you can just control the way you feel about it, so don't feel wrong, you know?
Yeah.
But the truth is to, on purpose, allow myself to feel bad, to go have a snit fit, to empty that tank. That's the first thing that is a challenge for all of us, to do that. Because we think, I don't have time, I'll do it later, I don't want my family to hear me, I feel out of control, it's really not that important. And I think it all starts here, because once that tank is empty and you've got the endorphin and dopamine and oxytocin flowing through you, you feel love for yourself. And once you feel loving towards yourself, you're less likely to go out making people wrong, to come from a wrong-making perspective. And so what I feel when other people say, well, you should try the Alexander method, and you should try the Traeger method and the Bowen method, and have you ever tried the this, that, and the other method? The truth of the matter is we're all working with a body. Yes. And our bodies are made of the same thing. And when you find what works, it's because you now are encountering fascia. You are triggering a release in the fascia. You are allowing your fascial fishnet to let go. And it can be triggering for people who are really into a method and a modality, and they want to kind of force their idea and say that this is the only way. That puts you in a box, and that puts up drywall, and that stops you from having experience, because you can't allow it if you don't believe in it, know it's possible, haven't experienced it yourself.
Yes.
So I think the biggest challenge is within ourselves. I used to have this ideal that anyone who worked doing myofascial release in my business should schedule weekly sessions for themselves. And oh my God, it was like herding cats. We're terrible. I don't mean to say that. That's a blanket statement. But my experience was that myofascial, the therapists that I work with, see themselves as givers. No, I'll do for you. I'll do for you. No, I'm the one who gives in your direction. And it's, for whatever reason, difficult for them to surrender and receive and maybe fall apart in front of a colleague or something. But the more treatment that you receive, the better the therapist you become.
Yes.
And you don't feel so much like it's all fascia, baby. If you're resisting and you're trying to shove the idea of fascia out into the world, which I have done, that's how I know this, then you get other people's fascia resisting you.
Yes.
And there's no point, because parentheses, fascia can resist with up to 2,000 pounds of tensile strength. And so you're just wasting your energy. And these former modalities that now call themselves structural integration use a lot of force. But this is allowing energy. Myofascial release is allowing energy. And if I'm trying to push against resistance in someone else's body, I'm wearing myself out, I'm reinforcing bracing patterns in them, and I will never get to the deeper layers of them letting go. Sometimes I hear myself and I think, wow, Ronelle, you've been talking a lot.
This is why you're here, to talk to us. And I mean, the depth of knowledge you have, because my mind is wanting to go into different directions, because there's also the scientific part of it that you are so brilliant about. But then even on a deeper level, it's like right now we're really facing those situations where we need to take care of this release. We need to honor and not force our body to shove it down, but we need to honor that our bodies are going through this chemical, overwhelm right now. And whatever you can do, go home and beat the bed out and scream it out, right? That's the homework that I give everybody, because everybody needs that, So that, I think this is powerful. And like, I want you to talk as much as you can.
Okay, good, because I've got another thing to say.
Yes, this needs to get out in public. This is what I think. That's why you're here. So tell us.
Okay, I'll start by saying this. There's a section in my book called I'm Not Like That. And that is drywall. So if you're out there thinking, I'm not going to do that snit fitness thing on my bed, I'm not like that. I'll dance. I dance. That's what I do. I dance.
Yes.
And that's how I open up my fascial fishnet. Yeah, but do you cry when you dance? And do you say horrible things about your father when you dance? And this is not to say everybody has the same issue, but if you don't allow the full emptying out of your tank, there are still nasty acidic residuals inside you that you have judged and given meaning to as bad and won't let out. Here's another analogy. It's gross, but people will remember it. It's as though you're ill and you need to vomit. And you say, okay, I'll vomit everything but the carrots. You don't have that choice. And trying to separate them out in your mouth and swallow them back is just not good. If your body needs to let go, stop trying to check and see the content of what it's letting go and judge it and let only this out but not that out. And I'm now hearing myself making people wrong, and I don't want to do that because you are in charge of you, and you know when you're ready to let go and when you're not. And I do not have an agenda that every session needs to be this big emotive thing. All I'm doing is presenting concepts that can further your understanding of what's possible when you receive a myofascial release session, and hopefully take some of the sting out of, the word is emotion, but the judgment and the fear of emotion. Somebody really wise recently said to me, in our culture, we have it figured out as far as brain, mind, and we're good at fitness, body, you know, discipline that meat bag into submission. And we're also pretty into spirituality too. We can do that. Oh my God, we can spiritually bypass
everything. Right.
But we're all at about 6 years old emotionally. And there's a big taboo about feeling your feelings and showing emotion, and being able to have your feelings, not judge yourself, and be around other people who also don't judge you. And what happens, I think, is that the suppression can only last so long, and then you're in the kitchen and you drop the butter knife. And you think that it's for reasons, and you want to tell your spouse, you never sent me a birthday card last year. And you'll find out only after you've had a really rip, snort, and snit fit that that's not really, that was just a little petty offense. And that you'll sweat so much less of the small stuff if you give yourself this emptying out, and it won't come out as being bitter, angry, spiteful, resentful, disappointed.
Yes, I mean, and where, you know, just imagine where this can take us as society if we actually allow ourselves that vulnerability of even those deepest things that are just like taboos. If you even just go into your bedroom, nobody's looking at you, but if you allow it to peel off and actually come out and you know, vomit it out, because that's really what it is, you know, and just leave it behind. I mean, yeah, what do you see myofascial release and this, you know, not just myofascial release, but this approach of respecting and yet allowing everything to process without shoving it down? Where do you see it taking our world and society if we actually, you know, start practicing it?
That's a really interesting place to go in my mind. I have been lucky enough to move in the direction of things that feel good and find myself in a community of people who are a vibrational match to me. And they all understand this aspect of things, yourself being one of them. you know.
Mm-hmm.
When you swim in a pool full of myofascial release therapists, there's just so little to judge, so little to trigger and get upset about, and
Mm-hmm.
so much connectivity happens because as above, so below, and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. The branches of our fascia and the way that it connects and follows and flows can be reflected in what I'm looking at right now is the oak tree outside and the branches of the oak tree, and can be reflected up into the cosmos, into the universe, into the branches and extensions of galaxies. And once you realize that we are all connected, not just from, we are all crystalline beings of light, you know, which
Mm-hmm.
I love that concept,
Abstract.
but people get to rolling their eyes and
Yes.
they will lump us into the woo-woo category. But we have an actual physical mechanism
Yes.
inside us
Mm-hmm.
called the fascia that is a web that is hollow, tubules
Mm-hmm.
that are transparent, that contain salt water and help to conduct light. They're superconductors for
Mm-hmm.
information,
Mm-hmm.
and that we are all able to tune into one another's fascia and allow for us to be ourselves around each other and not put shame on having an animal reaction, and to, I almost cussed, to have personal ownership.
Mm-hmm.
To not be a victim or being blamey, but say, I feel angry. It's not about you. I'm going to go have a snit fit. Or, oh, I just really shouted at you and got that all over you. I'm sorry. I'm going to go take
Mm-hmm.
care of my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then that expands out into the world. And this BS that is always going on
Yes.
about whose side are you on and who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who's bad. And it just feels to me like people handing their fear to you on a platter all the time. And
Yeah.
I'm saying that angrily, like they're wrong. I'm just saying it because it feels yucky to me and I don't like it. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means they don't understand that they are looking outside themselves for a solution,
Yes.
and that they don't own their own body, their own animal, and they don't understand that every single thing in life can be interpreted from, is this coming from fear or is this coming from
Mm-hmm.
love? And what would love do here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and there is a way to actually enhance and expand that love in a way that is, it's not about meditating on the rooftop or mountaintop. It's about actually going in the body and allowing the stuff to come out and honoring and being vulnerable about, our past. And we all been through a lot, and the trauma. I mean, everybody went through some sort of trauma in whatever in their life story, and just honoring that there was a lesson, there was a learning process, and um, we have tools, we have
Oh, yes.
it's and those tools are not just some woo-woo thing about like, oh, we are connected, whatever. I mean, it's like you're bringing the science to the people, right?
Concrete.
Yes, and
Yeah.
there's right now we have the view of fascia that's magnified. We know how it looks like. We know how it conducts energy and light, and that it is a
And how it
communication
can act
system.
like a tourniquet.
Yes, exactly, and we can see that with our eyes, which is amazing. Can you tell people how, if they are interested, like how can they learn more about the fascial system, and just for those who like want the proof?
Let's see. For those who want the proof, um, Gil Hadley,
Mm-hmm.
Robert Schleip,
Uh-huh.
uh, David Lasonbach.
Mm-hmm.
This is a
There's
quiz.
a,
I hope I'm passing.
no, it's just a lot of, I mean, there is a lot of science, but then your book too, right? I mean, you just showing it from a perspective that an ordinary person can read it and enjoy it.
Right.
So,
I'm an interpreter.
yes.
You know, I can read those pithy novels, pithy books, and I can take their 72 very highfalutin words, and I can interpret it into meaning. Oh, you need to kick and scream and bounce around on your dad.
That's what this meant, right?
In order to restore flow and all the electrical charges in your body, and piezoelectric effect, and all of those things that I love in terms of language, but that don't really translate to the layperson.
Wow. Wow, this is so much stuff to actually delve into, and I know we cannot delve into all of it in one interview because you have, I mean, obviously your book is the resource for people to go into and read to go deeper and then find a therapist nearby you, because there is myofascial therapists all over the world actually right now. So
yes, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So we talked about the fascia and emotions today a lot. And so can you tell us, well, actually, I would like to, like we're talking about how to get help, but tell us more about how people can reach you and what you can offer.
Okay.
Or guidance.
I realize,
for those for guidance for those who are curious.
Yes. I realized I should have brought a copy of my book to the seat here. So I'm going to go get one. I'll be right back.
Okay,
but I'm going to keep talking because my thing works, right?
Yes, keep talking. Okay. Don't ever stop talking, Ronelle, you know.
Well, what I wanted to say was I am about to use a cuss word, and I think it's really useful to use a cuss word when you're being accurate, okay? Mm-hmm. So I've always felt that within the experience of, oh, shit, are the seeds of, oh, yay. So I wouldn't wish the experiences that I've had on anybody.
Yes.
And yet, look where it got me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I have been there, there's a joke that goes, religion is for people who are afraid of going to hell, and spirituality is for those who have been there. Mm-hmm. And what I've gone through and healed from has informed me as a therapist. So there's very little that happens on the table that shocks me, that's not okay with me, that I feel a need to judge. In fact, I feel, I bet you do too, that it's like being at a birth. It's like when all of that stuff is working its way out, it's beautiful to me. And it feels that I am paying forward.
Yes.
What was done for me in that very first pelvic floor workshop that Tina was teaching for John Barnes. It was the beginning of coming alive for me and owning who I am and loving me, uncovering all the stuff that felt like I was ruined or polluted or could never get over, and finding out that precious little darling blonde-headed me was still in there, and I could take her with me. And so that's why I say within the experience of something like what we're going through right now with the COVID-19 virus scaring us all, it's changing things. I've started teaching classes online, and I wanted to do that for a long time, but I was busy. I was doing myofascial release sessions, didn't have time. And then for the first time in my career, I've been forbidden from touching people. And it's awful.
Yes, it is.
But it has given me time to figure out how to get an email list going and send the link plus the password and
Yes.
stop Zoom bombing, all of those things. And so when I'm teaching my classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, there are people in North Carolina and Michigan and Santa Fe and all over the United States joining me in a way they couldn't before. So some of the classes have 30 people in them, whereas I was teaching 8 at a time before. And so that's one way in which you can connect with me directly in the aspect of how to get off the table and then stay out of those patterns that you came in with.
Yes.
This is my book.
Touching Light.
How to free your fiber optic fascia. Trivia, that's my hand. I took a picture of my hand underneath a milky piece of glass. And this is available on Amazon for anybody who wants. You do want it, by the way. It's a great book. And the feedback that I get is it's really easy to read and you have the experience with me in this interview. You know that I am a bit of a silly person from time to time. But humor, I think, helps people.
You embrace your little Ronelle alongside your adult Ronelle and your scientific Ronelle and all of those aspects, right? So this is the beauty of it.
Right. You can be silly, honey. I'll do the adult stuff that's not very fun. But my inner child definitely gets to come out and play.
Yes.
Other ways to connect with me is through Facebook. Ronelle Wood personally, or Om Sanctuary, OHM, that stands for Ojai Sanctuary. There's also a Touching Light Facebook page. And I have a bunch of YouTube videos on my channel, Ronelle 1111. And that is because I was born on November 11th.
Oh wow. That's a great time to be born.
I'm taking it very seriously.
Yes. Wow. And so, I mean, we're going to post all those links just so people can actually go on and check your class as well. And you know what really, what touched me so much when you said, once we actually experience this amazing release and the gift that other therapists gave us and during courses, during therapy, like you want to give it forward. You want to give it forward because it is life-changing. It's more than life-changing. It saves lives in a way.
Indeed.
Yeah, what pains me the most is that so few people still know how much is possible and available out there. There's still so much work to do in bringing that to people and actually, allowing people to have that courage to go there, because it does take a lot of courage to be the patient, to be the on the table. It takes huge courage.
Well, I want to give credit to you for being willing to do public speaking, which they say is high on the list of things like right under death.
Right.
Most people don't enjoy doing, but I think, we have not only willingness, but skill at talking fascia and imparting enthusiasm about it. So when I feel a little daunted at, oh my gosh, that's a big hill to climb to get this word out into the world, I also remember that I am one fiber in the fascia of this world. And if I keep letting the light flow through my little tubule, I can't even know how many other tubules it communicates with and the difference that it makes in their lives and the distance that is being covered. And also to John Barnes, my goodness, for carrying the torch for how many years is it? 40 plus?
I think probably 50 or 60, close to 60 probably. Yes, which is amazing.
Yeah. And people have said to me, as I know they've said to him, I can't imagine what it feels like to hear this for 60 years. Your information is so good, Ronelle. How come more people don't know about it?
That's a good question.
Just one at a time, and then maybe
1%.
an online platform, and
Mm-hmm.
put me in, coach. I'll do a TED Talk.
Yes. Yes. Well, are you planning on any TED Talks? I know that that's been on your list.
Well, how much time do we have left?
We can. How much time do you have? Because I'm really enjoying the conversation.
Okay. Well, shoot, we've been doing this for an hour and a half.
Yes. So
I need
I
to eat
respect
at
your.
some point.
I respect your time. Yes, we can always talk more.
Yeah. So I'll say this one last thing about a TED Talk.
Yes.
I had no idea this would come up, but it obviously just fell out of me. I once had the most embarrassing miscommunication with someone who was in New York. Somebody put me in touch with them because they said, Ronelle, your information has to get out there. And they said, a week from now, they're doing a TEDx in New York. Here's the contact person. And when I spoke with her, what we ended with was, she said, your job is to get yourself here. And then I'll do whatever I need to do on this end to clear a space for you. I will give up my seat for you. And I thought, wow, she gets it. So I announced on Facebook, I've been invited to do a TEDx talk on this date in New York. My sister said, I'll pay for your plane ticket to get there. The woman on the other end was looking for a place for me to stay. And I began to write the TEDx talk that I wanted to give. And I was going to get it done. And at some point, she called back and said, I've been talking to some of the people that you've been talking to, and I think you think that you're going to give a TEDx talk, but all I was saying was that you can come be in the audience.
Oh.
And I had already broadcast to the world. And so the shame and the failure that I felt was horrible. But I set my mind that I was going to do it. I wrote it and I videotaped myself giving it, and I delivered it under the wire and during the time that I said that I would do it. And it was a personal mission on my part. And I believe that video is available online, and I think it's called Fascia is Fiber Optic ? And that's, you can find that through Ronelle 1111.
Yes, wonderful. Yes, I'm going to post that together with the recording on Facebook, so everybody can go to Ronelle's YouTube. I think YouTube is a great destination because you can see the fascia magnified, and you can see Ronelle talking, and so there's just a lot of information that's pretty outstanding. And just let's get it, let's get it out in the world, not just because of it's not for myofascial release, it's not for the therapy. It is because it changes the world, where we can stop squishing down that stuff and stop getting sick, not knowing why. Because there is a way that is so much more compassionate and kind and effective, and
it just works.
It doesn't involve cutting your body or putting a bag of chemicals down your throat. I mean, yes, that's just what it is.
First take the pressure out of the system, then see what happens to those symptoms.
Wow. Well, I mean,
I think that to do a TED Talk or a TEDx talk, you have to have a big platform. So a bunch of people need to write to TEDx or TED and say, Ronelle Wood has good stuff to share. She's legit. She has cred. She's written a book. She's been doing this for years. And it's through other people piling in and asking for this to happen that happens.
Yes.
Wow. Not my favorite thing to study, but that's what I've kind of sussed out so far.
set it as your goal and you get there, you know. We taught that.
Yep.
What is
Yep.
your goal, Renee?
Expanding the platform right now so that there are a lot of people that I can connect with.
This is what we're here for, and definitely whatever I
World Wide Web.
Yes, and we're going to you know, post your presence online, so hopefully this will contribute a little piece. So if you were to leave us all with like one sentence, like something that you want to bring to people that they can remember from your presentation.
Feel your feelings, no matter what they are, and love yourself. It is not a sin, as I was raised to believe, that you can't have anything outward for anyone else until your own house is clean, till you're empty of all of the precious saved triggers, the bad experiences, the shame, the things held inside that you don't think you'll ever let go of or that anybody wants to see. This journey isn't toward losing your mind. It is toward loving yourself.
Wow.
And feel your feelings, yeah.
Wow. That's profound. Well, thank you, Ronelle. I don't know why I want to call you Renee.
It happens a lot.
Ronelle.
My father is Ronald, if that helps. Ronelle.
So Ronelle, thank you so much. It's been such an honor to have you here and to have you share a small part of your incredible wisdom and experience and knowledge and your ability to present it in an appealing way, and I think the way that people can really relate to on a deep level. And my hope is that whoever watches this today or the recording will find a healing in this presentation, and maybe be inspired to dig deeper, and also find a myofascial release therapist in your area, because they are available and they are out there, and they can be a key for you to live a fuller life where there is joy and there is vulnerability and there is courage, and you will be surprised where you can get. So thank you again. I appreciate your time. I know that it's been a long interview, and so have a blessed day, everybody, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
You are lit up. I can see your light. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.